We'll move to question time. I call Senator Hume.
Thank you, Madam President. My question is to the Minister representing the Prime Minister, Senator Wong. The Prime Minister recently announced that small businesses will receive favourable capital gains tax treatment if they are classified as innovative. Can the Prime Minister advise what a cafe would need to do to qualify as innovative? Would a cafe that introduces a new type of coffee on its menu, or creates a new breakfast item, or adds a QR code to its menu be classified as innovative and receive favourable tax treatment?
Thank you, Senator Hume. Minister Wong.
Thank you, President. I thank Senator Hume for her question. And as you know, on budget night, the Treasurer announced a process of consultation on a number of aspects of these very ambitious and substantial tax reforms. And they are ambitious and they are substantial because we know the status quo is not working for Australians or for the Australian economy. And consistent with what the Treasurer announced on budget night, the government has worked through a series of consultations, both in particular with small business, and that has resulted in some changes, but also in relation to the start-up sector, where the government has made clear through the release of a consultation paper entitled Capital Gains Tax Reforms Arrangements for Innovative Start-ups, that we are open to a discussion.
Minister Wong, please resume your seat. Senator Hume.
Point of order on relevance, Madam President. I asked about a cafe and what it would need to do to be considered innovative.
Thank you, Senator Hume. I've been listening very carefully and the minister is being relevant to your question. Minister Wong, please continue.
In relation to small business, the Deputy Leader of the Opposition would be aware that the government has maintained the 4 existing tax concessions for small business and has, in fact, in relation to one of those tax concessions, raised the threshold so that more small businesses will be eligible. So that more small businesses will be eligible for this concession, and this was after substantial consultation with the small business sector. So, what I would suggest to the Deputy Leader, I realise that those opposite are so worried about One Nation they are not actually focused on policy that's good for the country. But what we have put in place is a set of reforms which are necessary for the benefit of the economy, business and of working people.
Thank you, Minister. Senator Hume, first supplementary.
Thank you, Madam President. So clearly there's no answer for the cafe. What about other businesses? Under the Prime Minister's new policy of classifying small businesses as innovative to receive favourable capital gains tax treatment, what, for instance, would a hairdresser need to do to be classified as innovative? Is there a way for an innovative hairdresser to claim the capital gains tax discount?
Thank you, Senator Hume. Minister Wong.
There is a serious issue about ensuring that start-ups and biotech thrive in this country, and we said that we would consult in recognition of the unique characteristics of these highly innovative businesses, and the discussion paper to which I alluded, and I think submissions are open till early, from memory, till about 10th or 11th of July. Submissions can be made in respect of that. In relation to small business, I refer to my earlier answer, where, as a result of consultation with the small business sector, the government has lifted the threshold on one of the key tax concessions for small businesses so that more small businesses will be eligible for concession.
Thank you, Minister. Senator Hume, second supplementary.
Thank you, Madam President. Can the minister then explain who will make the determination as to whether a small business is considered sufficiently innovative, what guidance will be provided to businesses and investors on this, and whether businesses will be able to challenge a decision that they are not sufficiently innovative, like this cafe, like this hairdressers, to qualify for that capital gains tax discount?
Thank you, Senator Hume. Minister Wong.
The point I would make, and I'll again make it, but I think the Deputy Leader is deliberately not recognising what is. No, I think she's deliberately not interested in my response. We are delivering about $3.8 billion in new business tax relief measures. This includes the $20,000 instant asset write-off, making that permanent, a permanent 2-year loss carryback for companies with turnover up to $1 billion, increasing the turnover for the existing 50% active asset reduction CGT concession from $2 million to $10 million. In other words, enabling more small businesses to gain that concession. There is a separate process around innovative businesses. You are deliberately bringing them together in order to try and make mischief, and we all understand that.
Thank you, Minister. Senator Grogan.
Thank you, President. My question is to the Minister for Finance, Senator Gallagher. Last month, the Treasurer handed down the Albanese Labor government's 5th budget, which supports Australians through the global oil shock while delivering a fairer housing market, a more productive economy and a better tax system. Can the Minister outline how this responsible reforming budget is supporting Australians under pressure and setting the country up for the future?
Thank you, Senator Grogan. Minister Gallagher.
Thank you, President. I thank Senator Grogan for that question. This is a responsible budget that is focused on relief, resilience and reform. The conflict in the Middle East is weighing heavily on our economy and compounding cost of living pressures facing Australians. So we're delivering more cost of living help and building a more productive economy, a fairer housing market and a stronger and more sustainable budget. We're reforming the tax system for workers, businesses and future generations, and our tax reforms have 3 goals: to level the playing field and better align the tax treatment income from work with income earned in other ways, to help more Australians recognise the dream of home ownership and get a foothold in the property market, to improve productivity by encouraging innovation and investments. Our reforms will build a better, fairer and simpler tax system by reducing the tax burden for over 13 million workers, supporting 75,000 more homeowners, first homeowners, into the housing market, delivering over $3.8 billion in new measures that lower taxes for small businesses and start-ups, and reducing compliance costs by $540 million a year. This tax package is pro-aspiration, pro-worker and pro-investment. It builds on our reforms to date, including 3 rounds of tax cuts, making super fairer and more sustainable, and making multinationals pay a fair share of tax. On July 1 this year, over 14 million Australians will get another tax cut of up to $268, and our combined tax cuts mean a worker on average wages will pay up to $2,800 less tax than what we inherited. The Liberal and Nationals tried to increase income taxes at the last election, and now they're defending the status quo, which punishes workers and locks too many people.
Expired. Senator Grogan, first supplementary.
Thank you to the Minister. That's very informative. Last week, following consultation, the Prime Minister and the Treasurer announced further details of the government's tax reform package, extending the small business capital gains tax discount to 2.7 million small businesses and backing innovative start-ups. Can the Minister outline how these changes give small businesses greater clarity and confidence while still making the tax system fairer?
Thank you, Senator Grogan. Minister Gallagher.
Thank you very much. I thank Senator Grogan for that supplementary. And as Senator Grogan outlined, the Prime Minister and Treasurer did announce further implementation details for the government's tax reform package. We had flagged in the budget papers and on budget night that there would be further work done to consult with the start-up sector about how these changes could most appropriately apply to them. We said we would do that. We said we would consult with small business. We said we would consult with start-ups. We have done that. We have increased the threshold from $2 million to $10 million for the 50% tax discount for small businesses. It means all 2.7 million active small businesses and 98% of all active businesses will be eligible for generous CGT concessions. Consultation is now open on the Innovative Business CGT concession. There is more discussions to be done. That consultation paper is out for the next 3 weeks.
Senator Grogan, second supplementary.
This budget is designed to support Australians facing cost of living pressures while continuing responsible budget repair. How do the measures in the budget support Australian households, and how does this build on other cost of living measures that the Albanese Labor government has already delivered?
Thank you, Senator Grogan. Minister Gallagher.
Thank you, and I thank Senator Grogan for that question. And the Albanese government has been focusing on cost of living since we came to government, whether it be in support for energy bill relief, whether it be in the Medicare urgent care clinics, whether it be in cheaper medicines, whether it be our investments in bulk billing, all of those. And of course the tax cuts. Those opposite hate hearing about tax cuts because they remember that they went to the last election promising to hike everyone's tax. That was a stroke of genius from those over there that went and thought about it and thought, you know what, we're going to go and fight an election by taking tax rises to the people and see what they say, and oppose the tax changes, the tax cuts that we are doing, that we are providing on the 1st of July this year. The working Australians will get a further tax cut. There's the instant deductions and there's the working Australian tax offset to come in place as well.
Thank you, Minister. Senator Cash.
My question is to the Minister representing the Prime Minister, Senator Wong. Will the government's innovative business carve-out apply at the time a business is founded, when shares are issued, when an investment is made, when an employee share scheme is granted, or only years later when a capital gain is realised?
Good question. Thank you, Senator Cash. Minister Wong.
As the senator would know,
Order.
Where's Anne? That's what I'd like.
Order.
Where is Senator Ruston? Where is Senator Ruston, by the way?
I can think of a small start-up business that's not very innovative.
For the benefit of the Leader of the Opposition, as I said in response to the Deputy Leader of the Opposition, who of course went to the election with higher taxes, I explained that there were two tranches of changes that I was discussing. The first in relation to small business, where we have lifted turnover to $10 million so that 2.7 million active small businesses and 98% of all active businesses will be eligible for generous CG capital gains tax concessions. In relation to the innovative start-up measures, as I also explained to the Deputy Leader, the Treasurer, through the Treasury, is engaging in consultation. A consultation paper was released on the 18th of June, which goes through various arrangements for innovative start-ups, and the government will obviously have those consultations in good faith and bring forward those amendments as and when necessary.
Thank you, Minister. Senator Cash, first supplementary.
Thank you. If eligibility is assessed years after an investment is made, how are founders, employers and investors supposed to price in risk today?
Thank you, Senator Cash. Minister Wong.
Certainly would be advising Australian business to price in the risk of a coalition One Nation government, because we all understand what that would mean for both business and working people and the Australian economy. That is a risk they should price in and make sure they work with the Labor Party to ensure that they are never delivered, that they never deliver a government, because we know what that side would be like if we saw Senator Cash and Senator Hanson working together in this chamber to take away so many of the things that Australians need. What I would say to you, Senator, again, as I explained in my primary answer to your Deputy Leader, that the government is consulting on arrangements for innovative start-ups. That consultation will proceed. In relation to small business, the government has announced a higher threshold, so 98% of all active businesses will now be eligible for more generous CGT concessions.
Senator Wong. Senator Colbeck, withdraw the comment you made during Senator Wong's contribution, and I caution all senators about using that word in here.
I withdraw.
Thank you, Senator Colbeck. Senator Cash, second supplementary.
Thank you. And given the minister's inability to answer either the Deputy Leader of the Opposition in the Senate or myself questions, isn't this exactly the uncertainty that start-ups are warning about? The government announces a toxic tax, it fails to define the carve-out and leaves founders and investors to guess whether they will be punished years down the track.
Thank you, Senator Cash. Minister Wong.
Well, I would say to the Leader of the Opposition that if you want an example of chaos and uncertainty, it is the Federal Coalition.
You have no idea.
Order. Have you finished, Minister Wong? Yes, thank you. Senator Waters.
My question is to the Minister representing the Prime Minister. Australia currently has 178 billionaires who each make $29 million a day. Corporate profits have grown at almost double the rate of wages over the past decade. Yet on budget night, this government offered working people $4.81 a week that they won't see until 2028. Nothing for renters and not one extra dollar for anyone on job seeker, youth allowance or the aged pension. Minister, do you accept that support for One Nation is rising because Labor has no serious plan to fix the cost of living?
Thank you, Senator Waters. Minister Wong.
No. And what I would say to you, Senator, is two things. First, if you are so keen on tax reform, look forward to you passing the tax changes here. And these are tax changes that that people in your party as well as people in the community have been calling for, so I look forward to that and you supporting that. The second point I would make is, as a Labor government, we have delivered measures to address cost of living pressures, to roll out more urgent care clinics, to enable energy price relief, to provide more protection for workers, to provide higher wages for working people, whether it's in the childcare sector, the aged care sector, or people on the minimum wage. And we will always do all that we are able to address cost of living challenges. Now, there is obviously more to do. And this government is determined to continue to deliver the change that is required in the face of increased cost of living and higher pressures for so many Australian workers. But one thing I am very clear about, Senator, is that the way to confront what we see across the chamber is to seek to bring people together and to remind working people that those opposite are more interested in working together against the interests of workers, against the interests of public services, against the interests of more universal health care. That is what those opposite are more interested in doing. And I invite the Greens to take a different approach to the approach they so often take, which is to believe that their job is to attack this side of politics rather than recognising what is happening on that side of politics, the Conservative side of politics, and what is up for stake. We on this side understand that, and we are up for this argument.
Thank you, Minister. Senator Waters, first supplementary.
Thanks. When governments don't work for people, anger at the system rises. Last week, Senator Hanson stood at the National Press Club and offered nothing more than ugly anger, Islamophobia, racism and transphobia. Minister, do you accept that your government's capitulation to corporations and the wealthiest 1% has disaffected voters turning to anger?
Thank you, Senator Waters. Minister Wong.
Well, with respect, Senator, I have watched some of your party, not all of you, but some of your party. I've watched some of your party engage in ensuring that anger rises. I've watched some of your party engaging in rhetoric which is divisive. I've watched some of your party engaging in the politics of anger and division. And I have actually said, and I think that some of your party have been very angry with me, that it is the same tactic as One Nation or Peter Dutton. So I think if you want to talk about not using anger and fueling anger and division to try and progress your political fortunes, then I hope the Greens might consider their own position and how they operate. And here we on cue. And this is my point. You say we want to try and bring people together, and we are open to a civil discussion about differences, but We do
Thank
not
you,
believe—
Minister Wong. The time for answering has expired. Senator Waters, second supplementary.
Thanks. One Nation opposes wage rises for workers. They oppose a 25% tax on gas exports. They oppose paid parental leave. They look after corporate super profits and not people. As the government, you could make the system fairer. You could tax gas exports, cancel AUKUS, spend the money to make people's lives easier. Minister, when will you tax billionaires and big corporations to fund cost of living relief?
Thank you, Senator Waters. Minister Wong.
Thank you. Senator Waters, I would make the point that the things that you talk about One Nation opposing are all reforms that a Labor government has delivered. Yeah. So just to remember, to set and make sure that we are actually having an open and honest discussion. Yeah, we are the ones who put forward Closing Loopholes Bill, voted against by One Nation twice. We are the ones who put forward the Secure Jobs Better Pay Bill. We are the ones who put forward the protection of penalty and overtime rates. We are the ones who are delivering cost of living, including new and permanent income tax cuts, including those that are in the budget, which we look forward to your support for. Now, there is always more to do, and we will keep delivering it. And what I would welcome, Senator Waters, is you and your party working to bring people together, because that is the best answer to the coalition of the right that we observe opposite.
Thank you, Minister. Senator Sheldon.
And my question is to the Minister representing the Minister for Employment and Workplace Relations, Senator Watt. Earlier this month, the Fair Work Commission handed down the 2026 annual wage review decision, recommending a real wage increase for award and minimum wage workers. Minister, how will this decision provide cost of living relief for almost 2.7 million Australians workers across this country?
Thank you, Senator Sheldon. Minister Watt.
Thanks, President, and thanks, Senator Sheldon, who, along with every senator in the Labor team, always stands up for the rights of working Australians. Senator Sheldon's right. Earlier this month, the Fair Work Commission handed down the 2026 annual wage review decision, increasing modern award wages by 4.75%, and they increased the national minimum wage by 6% from the 1st of July this year. Importantly for the workers of Australia, this is another real wage increase under the Albanese government, and that will help workers and their families with their cost of living pressures. And already we see Senator Canavan arguing against an increase to the minimum wage. This decision means, for the first time, the national minimum wage will rise above $1,000 per week. So angry, aren't you, about increases to the minimum wage?
Minister Watt, direct your comments to the chair.
It means the minimum wage is now $12,079 higher per year compared to when the Albanese government was elected. This is the economically sustainable real wage increase that our government called for in our submission to the Fair Work Commission, and it's the 5th consecutive time we've called for an increase to the minimum wage. In making the decision, the Fair Work Commission expert panel considered a number of factors, including the performance of the national economy, which has been impacted by uncertainty around the conflict in the Middle East, and the relative living standards and needs of minimum and award wage earners. Modern award employees predominantly work part-time hours, are in female-dominated industries, and a majority are casuals. Of course, it shouldn't come as a surprise to senators on this side of the chamber that Labor welcomes this decision and the cost of living help it will provide to working Australians. This is the pay rise that millions of Australian workers need and deserve. This is much-needed cost of living help for the cleaners, carers, hospitality and retail workers on the minimum wage and award-reliant workers, many of whom work fewer hours and have fewer financial buffers to fall back on. Under Labor, wages are higher, income taxes are lower, and we're helping first home buyers into that.
Senator Sheldon, first supplementary.
The Albanese Labor government has consistently advocated for and endorsed wage rises for workers in a number of industries. Last week, the government announced a $3.6 billion extension of the pay rise for early childhood educators. Why is this extension important, and how broad is the support for this announcement?
Thank you, Senator Sheldon. Minister Watt.
Thanks again, Senator Sheldon. Well, the pay rise for early childhood educators is absolutely vital because it provides them with a $255 a week pay rise. So, what was that, Senator Cash? You're worried about low-paid workers getting a pay rise.
Minister Watt.
You don't want low-paid workers to get a pay rise.
Minister Watt.
I know someone else like that, Senator Hanson, the Liberal Party and One Nation on a unity ticket to keep wages low. We are locking in that pay rise for early childhood educators, and we're funding it with a $3.6 billion investment. This pay rise is helping them pay their bills, it's helping them save, and importantly, it's helping them stay in jobs that they love. This is great news for educators and great news for parents as well. But one person who didn't back it, of course, was Senator Hanson from the One Nation Party. When asked if she thought the government's increased funding for childcare, she said that was ridiculous. And when asked if the pay rises for early childhood educators are unnecessary, Senator Hanson replied, "Didn't they get a pay rise just not so long ago?"
Minister Watt. Senator Sheldon's second supplementary.
Thank you, Minister, for outlining the Uni Party's opposition to wage rises. Ensuring the wages of low and middle income earners continue to rise is a key part of our plan to help workers earn more and keep more of what they earn. What are some of the other ways the government is supporting workers, and how does that contrast with the other views in the community?
Minister Watt.
Thanks, Senator Sheldon. Well, not only have we in Labor supported workers by advocating for a wage rise, but we've also criminalised wage theft and, of course, provided tax cuts to every Australian worker. In contrast, One Nation is joined at the hip with the Liberals in wanting to wind back Australia's workplace laws, cut workers' wages and abolish paid parental leave. One Nation even seem to think that all Australian workers are lazy and they want to make it easier to sack workers. So much for standing up for battlers. Now, I feel like I've heard some of that before, and of course that's come from the Liberal Party as well. In fact, Shadow Treasurer Tim Wilson gave an interview on the ABC on Thursday afternoon backing in Senator Hanson's position. When asked if he thought there needed to be an IR overhaul, Senator Hanson's words, Mr Wilson replied, "I agree with that, but I agreed with it before she said it. I said it first." Now the Liberals are claiming to have written One Nation policy. One Nation talk a big game, but they always cut the rights of workers, and they right alongside them when they do it is the Liberal Party of Australia.
Thank you, Minister. The time for answering has expired. Senator Hanson-Young.
Thank you. My question is to the Minister for Environment, Senator Watt. Australia has had its first confirmed cases of H5N1 bird flu, a disease that has devastated wildlife populations overseas and will not be able to be eradicated once it takes hold in Australia. It puts endangered species such as the black swan, the black cockatoo and the sea lion at even greater risk of extinction. Will the government back calls from experts and conservation groups for a $200 million two-year boost to wildlife resilience, coastal habitat protection and an invasive species control program?
Thank you, Senator Hanson-Young. Minister Watt.
Thanks, President, and thanks, Senator Hanson-Young. Thanks also for flagging your intention to ask this question when we crossed paths in the corridors earlier today. Just before I came to the chamber for question time, I've done some further media updates with the Agriculture Minister, Julie Collins, who's doing a fantastic job leading on behalf of the federal government our response to what are now 2 confirmed cases of the highly dangerous strain of H5 in Australia. People would have seen late last week we had the first case of that strain confirmed, and just today we've had confirmation of the second case of H5N1. Now, of course, this is a very serious matter and we are treating it seriously, but we do need to remember that at this point in time we only have 2 confirmed cases. That's a good thing, and of course we want to see it that way, stay that way, but we recognise that this poses a serious threat to wildlife in Australia, along potentially with the agriculture sector as well. And it's because of the scale of that threat that the Albanese government has invested $113 million already in preparedness efforts to ensure that we are as well prepared as possible for an outbreak of H5N1 coming to our shores. To some extent, it was always inevitable that this strain would reach Australian shores. We are the only continent in the world that has not yet had this strain on our shores, and it is spread primarily by migratory birds. It's quite remarkable, in fact, that we have not had this strain hit Australian shores so far, but we are well prepared. From my department's point of view, we have already undertaken a susceptibility analysis to properly understand the species that are at most risk of being infected, and that work has informed where our funding has gone for captive breeding programs, for planning by state governments and a range of other preparedness work. Now, Senator Hanson-Young may want to take political shots at this, but I note the response from the Invasive Species Council saying that never before in history has an
has expired. Senator Hanson-Young, first supplementary.
Thank you. Well, the government, of course, has warned about the impact of this virus on Australia's agriculture, but what modelling has the government done on the impact that this is going to have on Australia's native species and our wildlife? How many of our endangered species will be pushed to the brink of extinction if this virus takes hold?
Thank you, Senator Hanson-Young. Minister Watt.
Well, I take offence at the suggestion that this government or I personally would push a species to extinction, which is the way Senator Hanson-Young phrased that question. But we understand that the Greens will always take a political opportunity when it arises. As I was saying, my department, well before this event occurred, had undertaken a susceptibility analysis to identify the species at greatest risk from this virus, and that is why we have then invested $113 million, including $11 million in this year's federal budget, to ensure that we're prepared. Now, as I was saying when my time ran out, while Senator Hanson-Young and the Greens Party might want to take a political opportunity here, let's look at what the Invasive Species Council has had to say about this, a group that's actively involved in this effort. And I quote them as saying, "Never before in history has an environmental biosecurity issue been offered this level of funding for preparedness." So while the Greens might want to grandstand and take political pot shots, environmental groups like the Invasive Species Council recognise the effort that's been undertaken and have worked with us constructively in that regard.
The time for answering has expired. Senator Hanson-Young, second supplementary.
Thank you. 1 in 6 Australian bird species already are threatened with extinction. Australia has the highest rate of mammal extinction in the world because of habitat loss, climate change and other human impacts. When will you implement a moratorium on the clearing of critical habitat, given the bird flu issue and the fact that we're going to see our animals pushed to the brink of extinction?
Thank you, Senator Hanson-Young. Minister Watt.
Well, Senator Hanson-Young asks me what the government is doing around the clearing of habitat, and Senator Hanson-Young must not remember that only about 6 months ago the Greens political party supported legislation that the government passed for environmental law reform. And one of the key aspects of that legislation was to ensure that habitat is protected for threatened species and others.
Please resume your seat. Senator Hanson-Young.
Thank you, President. Bring the Minister back to the question. Maybe I needed to be more specific. What are you doing to stop the clearing of Alcoa?
Hanson-Young, I have warned you before about using points of order to make political statements. You are out of order. The Minister is responding to your question, and I invite the Minister to continue.
Thanks, President. So, as I was saying, it wasn't that long ago that the Greens Party, including Senator Hanson-Young, Senator Waters and everyone else sitting around them, supported legislation that this government passed through this Senate, the most far-reaching environmental law reform that Australia has seen for 25 years, that delivers a balanced package of stronger protections for our environment and also faster and simpler assessment and approval processes that will deliver the habitat protection that our threatened species deserve. In the meantime, we're not going to be doing political grandstanding like certain people who are yelling out over there. We're going to get on with the job of making sure we keep our species safe.
The time has expired. Senator McDonald.
My question is to the Minister representing the Prime Minister, Senator Wong. Last week, the Western Australian Premier warned that the government's proposed capital gains tax changes would discourage exploration and investment in our mining industry, which is essential for developing major projects. Does the government agree with the Western Australian Premier that its decision will deter investment, reduce exploration activity and undermine the discovery of future critical minerals deposits vital to Western Australia and indeed Australia's economic prosperity?
Thank you, Senator McDonald. Minister Wong.
Thank you. I am familiar with the Premier's position and, in fact, as I walked here to question time. I think he was doing a press conference in the courtyard there, and obviously the Prime Minister engages with Premier Cook and the government of Western Australia regularly and has engaged, including going to WA on many, many occasions, and I understand the proposition that is being put. I would make this point that the innovative business CGT concession that is flagged and scoped in the consultation paper that I was discussing with Senator Hume and Senator Cash. It is subject to innovation criteria. I would make the point that the government is supporting exploration and mining in other ways, including billions of dollars invested across special investment vehicles in Australian resources firms and projects. And, of course, you mentioned critical minerals, an investment in the critical minerals facility of $5 billion to grow critical minerals mines and processing, and the critical minerals production tax incentive, which is a 10% tax offset.
Thank you, Minister Wong. Senator McDonald.
My issue is with relevance. Specifically, does the government agree with the Western Australian Premier?
Thank you, Senator McDonald. The minister is being relevant. Minister, please continue.
I went directly to the issue you were raising, and I was trying to do you the courtesy, Senator, of responding directly, and I'll do it again. We are the concession is broadly available. It's not limited to a particular sector, but it is subject to innovation criteria. You asked about tax concessions for the sector, and I was outlining the ways in which taxpayers and this government supported particularly critical minerals, but more broadly resources firms and projects.
Thank you, Minister. Senator McDonald, first supplementary.
Labor's own budget papers show mining investment growth is heading for zero by 27-28. Isn't the truth that after scrapping support for junior explorers, increasing uncertainty and driving away investment, the Albanese government has turned its back on the very industry that pays Australia's bills?
Thank you, Senator McDonald. Minister Wong.
No, we don't. I don't accept that at all, Senator. And I appreciate that's a political. It's a political point you're making, and it is the case that WA is a powerhouse of the Australian economy, and we know how important the resources sector is for this country. As I said, the critical minerals production tax incentive, which I think you voted against, Senator, will turbocharge critical minerals investment in Western Australia. We also had, for example, a $3.4 billion commitment to the Resourcing Australia's Prosperity program, which is a generational investment in pre-competitive geoscience. And we have nearly, as I said, we have billions of dollars in production credits for critical minerals and critical minerals tax offsets. So there are tax incentives. So there are a range of tax incentives which reflect the importance of the resources sector and, in particular, critical minerals.
Thank you, Minister. Senator McDonald, second supplementary.
The Association of Mining and Exploration Companies told a Senate inquiry last week the government's critical minerals strategy says that the world needs 50 new lithium mines, 60 new nickel mines, 17 new cobalt mines. It seems counterintuitive to make exploring for these minerals fundamentally harder in Australia, but that's what the proposed CGT reforms do. Does the government's legislation align with the government's critical minerals strategy?
Thank you, Senator McDonald. Minister Wong.
Well, Senator, I would remind you that if you are such a supporter of critical minerals, why is it that you voted against a tax offset? Why is it that you voted against a tax offset? I mean, I'm trying to be courteous to you, Senator, but it really does smack of hypocrisy for you to have a go at the government on tax changes when you voted against a tax offset, a tax incentive for the very sector you purport to be supporting. So let's be really clear. The National Party and the Liberal Party voted against a production tax incentive for critical minerals. We all understand that. We all understand what they're doing now.
Thank you, Minister. Senator Hanson.
Thank you very much. Well, my question is to the Minister representing the Minister for Immigration and Citizenship, Senator Ayres. Minister, last financial year your Labor government issued more than 350,000 new permanent resident visas and citizenships. This is the equivalent of adding nearly 1.5 times the entire population of Hobart in just 1 year. Minister, how many new permanent visas and citizenships are you permanently adding to Australia's population this financial year, which ends in just 8 days?
Thank you, Senator Hanson. Minister Ayres.
I'd be delighted to answer the question, Senator Hanson, but I am not indeed the responsible minister, and no doubt Minister Watt's going to enjoy taking your question when he's ready to go.
Well, just a minute. Minister Watt, just resume your seat, please. Senator Hanson, I understand Minister Ayres is not the responsible minister, but I'll give you the opportunity. Would you want to redirect that question to Minister Watt?
Love to. My question is to the Minister representing the Minister for Immigration and Citizenship, Senator Watt.
Thank you. Thank you, Senator Hanson. Minister Watt.
Thank you, Senator Hanson. One inconvenient fact for the One Nation Party is that this government has nearly halved net overseas migration since it spiked after the COVID epidemic. Most people in this country recognise that during the COVID epidemic, essentially migration ended into Australia. People couldn't come here. Most people recognise that after the epidemic, migration skyrocketed because people were trying to get back into the country, including many Australians who were seeking to come back into a country. And also, of course, we inherited on coming to office a completely broken migration system that was left behind by Mr Peter Dutton. Remember him? Remember Mr Peter Dutton? I know, or have you sort of erased any memory of him? So, broken migration system combined with a massive increase in migration post-COVID. Ever since then, we have been working hard to fix the rorts and the other faults in the migration system, including around international student numbers. And what that has meant is that we have reduced net overseas migration by 45% since it spiked, so nearly halved, and we're on track to reduce it even further. Now, we recognise, as a government and as a party, that the migration numbers that we were seeing post-COVID were unsustainable, they were too high, and they needed to be brought down. What we also recognised that to house Australians, which is what the One Nation Party often links with migration, we also needed to build more homes. And that's why, as a government, we have invested tens of billions of dollars in building more social and affordable homes for the battlers that Senator Hanson pretends she cares about. And how did One Nation vote every time we tried to increase funding for housing? They voted no, along with the Liberal Party and the National Party. So don't come in here and lecture us about supporting houses for Australians because you always vote against them.
Has expired. Senator Hanson, first supplementary.
Minister, Australia has been suffering under mass migration. Minister, your government says you are cutting immigration, yet you've flooded the country with over 2 million arrivals since coming to government. The damage has been done. Your 45% cut is too little too late. Why are you using mass migration to paper over your abysmal economic management, disregarding the call from millions of Australians to stop it due to their standard of living being destroyed? Why are you waiting till 2027-28 to reduce it up to 225,000? That is still too many.
Hanson. The time has expired. Minister Watt.
Thanks again, Senator Hanson. As I say, this government has worked extremely hard over the last 2 or 3 years in particular to significantly reduce migration levels to much more sustainable levels. At the same time, we, unlike One Nation, unlike the Liberal Party, unlike the National Party, have also supported increased investment in housing for the battlers that you pretend to care about. They're the battlers who need homes, and they're the battlers who you voted against getting new homes funded by the government. So we make no apologies for the fact that we had to reduce migration numbers. They were unsustainably high post the COVID epidemic and post the rorts in the system that were left behind by the former coalition government. And the changes that we have made are bringing migration back to a much more sustainable level than it has been at. Now, the question for people like Senator Hanson is how they intend to obtain the hospital workers, the aged care workers and the workers in various other industries that come from migrant backgrounds.
Has expired. Senator Hanson, second supplementary.
Minister, analysis of migration data shows that just 20% of your 301,000 net overseas migrants in 2025 were skilled. That's before dealing with the fact that your skilled list includes occupations such as dog handler, hairdresser, gardener, golfer and migration agent. Minister, why is your government flooding Australia with 80% of unskilled migration?
Thank you, Senator Hanson. Minister Watt.
Well, some things don't change, do they? Senator Hanson, I know that it has always been your political agenda to try to divide Australians, to divide Indigenous Australians from other Australians, to divide other Australians from migrant Australians. This government will not engage in that kind of extreme division and chaotic arguments that the One Nation Party has been putting forward for the best part of 30 years. We saw from the National Press Club last week that One Nation's recipe for Australia is more division, more chaos and more cuts, and that is not something that this Labor government will stand for. This government is about bringing Australians together, not about dividing them from each other. And we'll leave it to Senator Hanson, along with her friends in the Liberal Party and the National Party, because they are all the same, to continue that kind of division, with a couple of rare exceptions, to continue with that division that is not the Australian way.
The time for answering has expired. Order. Order. Minister Wong. I advise the chamber that Senator Babet has order. Order on my right. I advise the chamber that Senator Babet has passed his question to Senator Roberts. Senator Roberts.
Thank you, President. My question is to the Finance Minister, Senator Gallagher, and relates to productivity. The measure of productivity I'm using is from the Australian Bureau of Statistics, GDP per hours worked. Under your government, the index measure of productivity has fallen from 100 to 99.6%. Minister, net overseas migration in the year to December 2025 was 301,000 people. What change will these 301,000 new permanent arrivals make to our productivity? GDP per hours worked across forward estimates.
Thank you, Senator Roberts. Minister Gallagher.
Thank you very much, President. I welcome the question on productivity because this budget had productivity right at the centre of the decision-making that we took. And as Senator Roberts would know from attending estimates, as he does and has as a representative of his party, that he knows from all the advice that Treasury has provided that productivity growth in the decade to 2020 was the slowest in 60 years. So just get your heads around that as everyone points a finger. The slowest in 60 years was in the decade to 2020, and we recognised when we came to government—
Minister Gallagher, resume your seat. I haven't called you Senator Roberts. Senator Roberts.
Thank you, President. Point of order. I asked about productivity falling under your government.
Thank you, Senator Roberts. I believe the minister is answering your question, but I will continue to listen carefully, and if she doesn't, I'll direct her to your question. Minister Gallagher.
Thank you. Well, I was explaining the evidence that Treasury has provided through various committee proceedings that I've been at, that Senator Roberts has been at, that the productivity challenge that Australia has right now is similar to many advanced economies, and that we had seen slowing productivity growth in the decade to 2020. We revised back the productivity growth assumptions in our budget on the advice of Treasury. Those had been hiding behind the myth of their numbers in their budget. We adjusted it based on advice from Treasury, and this budget has a range of measures which goes right to the heart of driving productivity improvements, which I would think in this chamber all of us could agree is a good thing. You know, whether it be in some of the regulatory reform work that I'm doing, some of the barriers to trade or removing those that Senator Farrell's at the heart of, building a single national market, accelerating approvals, the work that Minister Watt's leading in the environment, the work that Minister O'Neill is doing in housing, in the works with the states and territories in looking at how we use data and AI, all of these big challenges that economies like Australia are grappling with, we are dealing with in this budget. Sorry, I'm not sure the clock ran out.
Sorry, Minister. Senator Roberts, first supplementary.
OECD data shows productivity improvement only occurs if the migrants have a higher skill level than Australia has as a whole. In other words, quality, not quantity. Otherwise, productivity falls. Minister, does the low rate of skilled migration, less than 20% of your 301,000 migrants, mean that productivity in Australia across forward estimates will continue to fall?
Thank you, Senator Roberts. Minister Gallagher.
Thank you. Well, I know that One Nation and those parties on the right would like to blame every challenge on migrants to this country. We don't. On this side, we don't take that view. The productivity challenge is real. It's real in our economy. It's real in many, many economies around the world. And the measures needed to improve productivity are governments tackling serious challenges that have been ignored for too long, like, and I know you disagree with this, Senator Roberts, like the transition to net zero. I know you don't like it, but energy is a big part. Seizing the
Senator Roberts.
I don't want to know about the globe. This is a point of
Senator
relevance.
Roberts, why are you on your feet?
Point of relevance.
Thank you. The minister is being relevant to your question, and I'll continue to listen carefully. Minister.
Migrants have made a very significant investment into our economy and have brought additional benefits. And alongside, we value them, the contribution they make. We're dealing with the migration challenges, the net overseas migration. It's come down 45%, and we've got a range of productivity measures in place.
Senator Roberts, second supplementary.
Thank you. International data shows the more short-term migrants a country has, the less the productivity growth. Under your government, Australia has 2.59 million short-term visa holders, excluding tourists, of course. Minister, have you modelled the effect on gross domestic product per capita productivity from having so many short-term visa holders in your visa mix?
Thank you, Senator Roberts. Minister Gallagher.
Well, Treasury does a range of modelling and a range of analysis that feeds into our budget papers. Obviously, the numbers through net overseas migration inform other numbers that run throughout the budget papers. Again, we value the work and contribution of migrants and what they bring to this country. The productivity challenge is a substantial one. Senator Roberts, I would think on the issues that we've focused on in this budget, that you would agree with many of them, and you would agree that these are areas that governments and parliaments should be focusing on to drive productivity, because we know when we're improving productivity, we're improving the lives of every single citizen, and we are focused on that.
Please resume your seat. Senator Roberts.
Point of relevance again, President. I asked about per capita GDP productivity from so many short-term visa holders. That's all I asked about.
Thank you, and the minister is being relevant. Senator Roberts, have you finished? Senator Bragg.
Thank you very much, President. My question is to the minister representing who? Geelong? No, we didn't win on the weekend, unfortunately, but thanks for pointing that out.
Order. It's your time you're wasting.
Well, there could be more. You never know. Well,
Senator Bragg, I'm not giving you extra time, so ask your question.
Okay, well, my question is to the... Sorry? I think it's just been reset.
Yeah.
To start now? I was just being polite. I was just trying to be polite.
With due respect, Senator Bragg, you are anything but polite at the moment. Please start your question.
My apologies, President. My question is to the Minister representing the Prime Minister, Senator Wong. Given the latest backflips by this government on tax policy, can you please update the Senate on whether there still will be 35,000 fewer homes as a result of these tax hikes on housing, and will rents still go up as outlined in your budget papers? You should read the budget.
Senator Bragg. Minister Wong.
I know you're talking about that. You're misrepresenting the numbers.
Thank you. As I have said many times to Senator Bragg, he knows that the budget papers indicated when you take into account all that the government is doing, an increased number of homes over the decade. And I would make the point to you that we on this side of the chamber believe that government has a role in contributing to ensuring more houses are built in this country. Now, I know under your government, I think there were only some 300-odd houses that were built with the support of government for social and affordable housing
Minister
over
Wong,
a decade.
please resume your seat. Senator Bragg.
The point of order is on relevance. Will there still be 35,000 fewer homes and higher rents as a result of this budget?
Thank you, Senator Bragg. The minister is being relevant, and I'll continue to listen carefully. Minister Wong.
I actually responded to that in the first answer, that as I explained, as a whole we will see an increase in the supply of housing over the next decade if you look at all of the budget measures. And what we will see, importantly, in terms of composition, is an extra 75,000 first home buyers. So this is a budget which is, despite Senator Bragg's best effort, so this is a pro-supply budget. This is the budget which ensures that negative gearing will still be available for new builds, and new builds will have a choice of CPI indexation or 50% discount for the capital gains tax, 50% discount for capital gains. What I would say to you, Senator Bragg, is that we have. We know this housing affordability is a problem that is decades in the making, and we are throwing everything at it. We are throwing everything at it, including what we have built, and we are building on what we have done over the last 4 years. We are levelling the playing field for first home buyers. We are building more infrastructure. We are cutting red tape, and we are approving more homes. That is what we are doing. All you are doing is criticising, and you were part of a party that delivered nothing when it comes to housing supply.
Thank you, Minister. Senator Bragg, first supplementary.
Very good, very good. The Prime Minister said on 18 June, quote, "The definition of new builds and housing investment exemptions will be moved into primary legislation in a future tranche of tax reform," end quote. Does this mean that your new taxes bill before the Senate will define what a new build is?
Thank you, Senator Bragg. Minister Wong.
Well, Senator, I think you spent quite a few hours this morning ensuring we didn't get to the tax bills. But the budget papers, we know what your position on NDIS is, but that, fair enough. We've now started the tax legislation. We've been clear about what it.
Order. Order.
What page am I?
Order across the chamber. Order. Minister Wong, please continue.
I understand that we have said we intend to remove ministerial discretion in relation to these definitions to provide as much certainty as possible. I understand that there has been advice that legislation will be introduced later this year following consultation. However, if you look at the budget papers, Senator Bragg, as I was indicating to you, the core elements of what constitutes a new bill for the purposes of the tax changes was set out in the budget papers.
Thank you, Minister Wong. Senator Bragg, second supplementary.
Thank you. Are you surprised home building has collapsed by 30,000 houses a year under your government, given this shambles of a tax policy?
Thank you, Senator Bragg. Minister Wong.
Senator, over 660,000 homes have been built since we were elected. In fact, new home build starts are up. They are 26% higher than a year ago. Approvals are up 3 years in a row, and there are more first home buyers under Labor than there were under the Liberal Party. So I would make the point, Senator, I know you believe your job is to constantly talk down the market, talk down what is happening to housing. We recognise there is a problem with housing supply in this country. We recognise something has to be done about it, and we know that the answers are not simple, which is why we are throwing everything at it, whether it comes to additional funding, changes to planning and changes to tax laws. It is all about ensuring we get more housing supply in this country and more people into the housing market.
Thank you, Minister. Senator Tyrrell.
My question is to the Minister for Early Childhood Education, Senator Walsh. Minister, families in my home state of Tasmania know how important our childcare system is. It helps children grow, learn and be ready for school. And it helps families work, study and build their own futures. Can the minister update the Senate on why this sector is so important and how the Albanese Labor government is supporting families through our investment in early learning?
Thank you, Senator Tyrrell. Minister Walsh.
Thank you, President, and thank you, Senator Tyrrell, for your first question as a Labor senator for Tasmania. And it is good to have the opportunity, Senator Tyrrell, to clear this up, because it seems that there's been a little bit of confusion lately about the importance of early childhood education. Last week, the One Nation leader was asked what she would do to improve the childcare system, and she said, and I quote, "Childcare is completely out of control. Who's utilising those services? Do they require those services?" Well, let me help One Nation out. The answer is that 1 million modern Australian families rely on the early education and care system every week. That is who is utilising these services. 1 million Australian families, 1.4 million Australian children. And yes, Senator Tyrrell, Senator Hanson, those children, those families, they do need those services. Australian families need the childcare system to make their busy lives work and to help give their children a great start in life. And on this side of the chamber, we back those families. We're backing them by investing in our nation's essential early childhood educators with our historic pay rise. We're backing them with our 3-day guarantee, and we're backing families by building more centres in the places where they are needed too. This is the practical support that 1 million modern Australian families need. So while One Nation scratches their heads over what modern families actually look like, and while One Nation scratches around for a guide to modern family life today, Labor is getting on with the job of backing Australian families with the practical support that they need.
Thank you, Minister Walsh. Senator Tyrrell, first supplementary.
Thank you, President. Look, it's clear our early educators do an amazing job and deserve every cent of their 15% pay rise. It will help them pay the bills and ensure they can afford to stay in the jobs they love. But we know that families are also dealing with a cost of living crunch right now. How will Labor's policies help lower the cost of early learning for Australian families?
Thank you, Senator Tyrrell. Minister Walsh.
Thank you, President. Well, we are building an early childhood education and care system that is high quality. We are building a system that more families can afford, and we're building services where families need them most. We know families face cost of living challenges right now, and that is why the funding for our historic pay rise is tied to fee capping, putting downward pressure on fees and downward pressure on costs for families. And that is on top of our cheaper childcare reforms, which save the average family $3,500 this year, and our 3-day guarantee, which guarantees 3 days childcare subsidy for every family that needs it, saving families up to $1,500 a year. We are delivering a quality early learning system that more families can afford in the places that need it the most. This is real cost of living relief, and it is what families deserve.
Thank you, Minister. Senator Tyrrell, second supplementary.
Thank you, President. Early educators do one of the most important jobs in the whole country. They give the next generation of Australians a great start in life and help them get ready for school. Minister, why is a trained, qualified and respected early learning workforce so important?
Thank you, Senator Tyrrell. Minister Walsh.
Thank you. Well, on this side of the chamber, we know that our nation's early childhood educators are not babysitters. We know that our nation's educators, over 95% of them women, are highly skilled. They are dedicated, they are essential, and yes, they are qualified too. Now, One Nation thinks educators don't need to be qualified at all. But qualified educators understand how children's brains develop. They understand early literacy and numeracy. They promote social and emotional well-being. They do that in the first 5 years of a child's life, when over 95% of brain development occurs. Their work matters. We back these early childhood educators, we see them, we value them, and we are proud to back them in with our historic 15% pay rise, because we know that qualified early educators are the foundation of the quality sector that families deserve.
Thank you, Minister. Minister Wong.
Ask that further questions be placed on notice.